Ew. Sorry, I probably should have finished eating. I had a wonderful conversation today with a guy who's a plumber. And his story was so fascinating. And I was fortunate to talk to him for a few minutes. And ask him, what's his story? What's his deal? Now, I had gotten some information before. But here's the breakdown. He's from Wales, in England. So, for us simpletons, he's from England, right? And then he came when he was younger to LA just for funsies with a bunch of other dudes for 2 weeks. They came to visit LA, Hollywood, explore, whatever. And when they arrived, they went to, ironically, or maybe not ironically, a British pub in like Santa Monica. You know, you're in a new foreign place, you get to somewhere that's normal, you're used to it. In a weird way, it made sense. It was like, yeah, in Santa Monica, there's like a little zone area that's like very British. Okay, so he went there, and you know, the bartender or whatever, people are asking like, hey, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And he said like, oh, yeah, we're from England, him and his buddies, and he does plumbing. And then one of the people was like, oh, you do plumbing. Hey, well, while you're here, maybe you can do some plumbing for me. So fast forward 13 days, guy's doing some plumbing, and it's like, oh, well, hey, you want to keep working? You're good. I'll keep you on. Under the table. He's like, yeah, sure. So he like scratches on to the pub's like blackboard. Hey, one-way ticket to UK. And before the night's out, it's sold. Like, and mind you, this is a ticket for like the next day. But it's sold. So it's no loss. He proceeds to work for the next 4 years with this guy doing plumbing under the table. Because he doesn't have a work license. And then after that 4 years, he's like, you know what? I want to go back home. So he goes back home and he realizes like, oh God, I hate the weather. This sucks. This is horrible. And comes back to Los Angeles. Hits up his plumber guy. And they're like, yeah, happily, you know, I'm thinking he's a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander. It's like, you know what? I'm planning on retiring, so I'll give you all my stuff. I'll give you everything. I'm done. Like, I'm done. But you got to be legal. So, you know, in short order, he finds a woman. I guess they get married. They've been married this whole time. This is like 20 years later. I'm talking this guy who's been here in America for like 20 plus years, mind you. Anyway, so he finds this girl. They get married. Yeah. It's all legal. He gets a cert. Takes over the guy's business. And the guy goes back over. And what's interesting to know is that the New Zealander, the guy who's been whatever, he basically drops most of his clients because he's been undercharging what it costs to do the jobs. So he's working his tush off, but he's not making any money. So this guy, knowing what he knows, is like, no, I'm not going to do that. And decides to only do stuff that like actually make a profit. What a weird idea. I'm meeting this guy many years after the fact, mind you. Like 20 plus years after the fact. He has a kid, but it's not his biological kid because they couldn't have a kid. So they adopted a kid. He's super capable, super amazing, yada yada. And there was other amazing stories this guy told me. And all I want to illustrate in this whole thing is that this gentleman who visited Los Angeles, like, made things happen. He just was like, one could argue he was in the right place at the right time. And there's validity to that. But I think more than that, there is you being a good person, and then people are like, hey, we're gonna skadoodle, and being there and rising to the occasion. And in all that story, I've realized for myself that I'm not very good at this. I've picked a wrong horse. I'm kind of in a situation of being owed money by my boss, and I'm not willing to sue him. And kind of like, okay, well, I'm also not in an industry I really want to be in. And all this is to say that you should figure out what you want to do and just focus on that. Because this idea of jack of all trades is a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. I would consider myself a jack of many trades. Certainly not all of them. And I think that's kind of a failure on my part. Like, I'm very capable and able to do lots of things. But what I've not done is focus on the things that I'm really good at and, like, hone in on and make that profitable. So if nothing else, this is kind of a PSA of, hey, find what you're good at. Not what you're passionate about, not what you like love, but what are you good at, and then pursue that. And also point out that this guy 25 years ago, 30 years ago, he came to America and he made a successful life. Like, by any metric, a vastly successful life. And proceeded to do good things throughout that. And, like, have investment properties and buy this property and do this and do that. None of which were, like, outlandish things that put him in, like, oh, he invested in this and then he made $1 bajillion. It's like, no, here's a guy who played the game smartly, very intelligently, without being, like, overly knowledgeable. That is always available to anyone who's paying attention. And if anything, he showed up and was like, yeah, I'm a plumber. And somebody was like, I need a plumber. And he was willing to do the work. Like, imagine if he never said, if he said, I'm a plumber, and someone's like, oh, well, I need a plumber. He's like, yeah, but I'm on vacation. And then he never came back and never did. It'd be a totally different life. And I feel like people would be, it'd be a different life. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people could be like, yeah, well, more Americans should be plumbers. And, Americans would take that job. He took it away from Americans. It's like, yeah, but he does a good job. And now he's retiring and he's giving his business to an American to, like, go on and continue. Do your thing. Here you go. I'm giving it to you. And that's admirable and amazing because he's kind of doing what was done for him, but differently. All that is to say is, like, look, send your kids to college if that's really the right thing for them. But realistically, more often than not, your kid needs to go to a trade school. Pick a trade that they think they'd like. Send them to trade school. It's cheaper. Interestingly enough, his kid can't pick up a hammer per him. But his kid's, like, very good on the computer. So there's that. And he went to college and he's doing good. And he's going to go to another secondary college or whatever it is. So things are weird, but and I don't know if that his thing can be replicated today. I think it can. I just think it's rarer. It's harder. And in my experience with my boss is like, yeah, no, it's you have to account for inflation. There's been a lot of inflation in the last couple of years, so if you're not accounting for that, it's gonna smack you real hard. So I guess my point is there is value in being independent. There's value to being organic and figure out what works for you, and to be smart, to buy a home. Just be smart. Don't depend on anybody. Just figure out the future. I love you all. Plaidman out. Bye.